I mean, when you're a parent and you see the discord in your kids chart, the discord's coming from you. So it's tricky with kids because it's very confronting. So like with tell Linnea, like he's got Mars, opposing Pluto in the first. So he's going to bring out the worst in people. That's the tendency. Okay. And so if he brings out the worst in us and we respond by being the worst, then that locks in. It's gonna poor kid, right? But if he brings out the worst in us and we use that opportunity to respond, then it actually treats the discord before it locks in. So kids are still moldable and they're still clay. It's much easier to treat discord in a kid's chart than it is to treat it in an adult's chart. And so I was talking to Linnea and Jake also about this earlier today, is you have to think of it like this, okay? There are positive expressions of discord. There are negative expressions of discord. There are positive expressions of harmony. There are negative expressions of harmony, okay? An example that I use is winning the Super Bowl, okay? In order to win the Super Bowl, right, it feels wonderful, it feels great. So much harmony. But in order to do that, you have to overcome a shit ton of discord. You know, a game, a competition, that's discord. It's discord. And if you accomplish it, the feeling you have after is, it feels wonderful. That's a positive feeling of discord. You know, passing the bar, graduating law school, positive experiences of discord. Kid, someone who says, right, someone has so much harmony and they think of school, another 3 years of school, all that studying, right? No, thank you. And they get offered a boring job that pays them a lot of money. And they say, okay, right? Everyone's like, right? They have a cush job, they're making a lot of money, right? It looks great. But they're bored as hell, okay? That's the negative side of harmony. So when you see harmony and discord, it's not good and bad. It's not. It's like when you think of your kids, sometimes we get overprotective of our kids and we don't want our kids to have to do anything different. We get in trouble because the kid will have discord in their chart. It's about helping them develop the right attitude about the discord in their chart. So my 13-year-old, almost 14-year-old Elijah, right? When he was 2, we lived in this nice house and it had a play set in the back. One day we were in the backyard and we were going over the play set and there was a really rickety bridge. You know? And he started going across and I was right there holding his hand and he stopped. You know, I looked at him and I was like, what's up? And he's like, was scared. And part of me was like, dude, I'm right next to you. It's a play set, you know? And then I had this flash in his chart, 5 planets in the second house. Okay? 5 planets in the second house. And I was like, okay, here it is. Okay. Someone who has 5 planets in the second house, something they're going to have to deal with their whole life is that thought, if I don't know if I have what it takes. I don't know if I have what it takes. And so I spent a half an hour of time with him, helping him prove himself to himself and realize that he does have what it takes to walk across that rickety bridge. Because I knew that habit of him doing that himself is going to serve him over and over and over and over in his life. So as parents, we can understand, or as helping people, right? We can understand the challenges that this person is going to face, and we can help equip them with the tools to be able to make the best response to those challenges as they come up over and over and over again. And a hint here is we can apply this technique to ourselves, right? This idea of reparenting ourselves. This is the steps of how we would do it. This also can be applied in the workplace. This can be applied in so many areas where there's opportunities to grow and to develop and to help tend and nurture development in a certain direction. To tell stories. We used to tell stories, you know, our grandma would get around the fire and they would tell stories, and that's how culture was passed down. And I think we're in the Aquarian age and we're realizing that each of us have a unique past culture, and that astrology is a way for us to tap into our unique lineage. So, and you guys feel free to answer. In your imagination, why did humans start recording birth times in the first place? Meaning, because right now we take for granted that on most birth certificates, they write the birth time. Like, how did that even start? That just carried over. But if we think of how did the tradition start? Because why, like if you think about why would the time someone was born be important? About in history, right? If we go back to the, because if you go right now to the hospital and then you ask the nurse, why are you recording the child's time? The nurse is not going to say, because to capture the essence of this child, to capture the essence of this child's identity. You're not far off, but let's go back in the past to see if we can have a real genuine connection to how that even started. But even the idea of recording when someone is born, right? It's
Okay.
like the history of the birth record is you would register when a child was born, you would register the birth of the child at the local church. That's the origin of of recording birth times, birth certificate. Child was born, you would go to the church and you would record the name of the child and when the child was born. Do you guys think that's interesting, or does that mean I'm guessing no one's really thought about it, but it's interesting because I just take as tradition of on the birth certificate we see the time of our birth, and then I started doing astrology and I realized, I have a lot of interaction with birth certificates because people want to know the time of their birth, and as an astrologer, I'm like, thank God there are birth certificates to to note the time of someone's birth. But there's not any other situation in life where anyone ever asks you what time you were born. None. Zero. Zero. I'm sorry, I'm getting excited because it's mind blowing to me. And the reason is they knew, right? They knew a long time ago that you could get a sense of who was a quote unquote good egg and who was quote unquote a bad egg. The church wanted to have the records so they knew. Astro omens is again observing the sky. Okay, a child is born, right, and you go outside and there's some ominous omen in the sky. At the same time, right, you go outside after the child is born, right? They would note that, they would write it down, and then they would be part of the birth record that goes to the church. The point I'm belaboring here is that it's invisible to people who don't see, but astrology is literally at the core and foundation of kind of everything. I think it's innate in consciousness is that we can't help but notice things. We can't help but notice things that happen together. We can't help but notice coincidence. Even if you don't want to, you notice something. You can try to forget it and you pretend you didn't, but we were built to notice that. That's consciousness. We're built to notice white, black contrast and how to figure shit out. So that's what we're constantly noticing correlations and correspondences. Constantly. And so it's human nature when you're observing the sky and you just start to notice things, And then when we were able to record things, we were able to write, we could jot down and share and compare these correspondences. And because the sky is we all have access to the sky, and it's, as we know now, that its patterns don't betray some deeper sense of logic. It's the perfect symbol for superficial, deep, any kind of observation, because it's steady and it's always there and we can always see it. I was saying about adaptation. So part of it is our orientation. Most people in the world now are externally oriented. So we're trying to see who's going to win the Super Bowl, using our energy to adapt to external situations. But some people are more introverted in the world. It seems feels like it's shifting, and certain parts of the world are more internal. And for them, they've always been using it to navigate in it. It's a navigation tool, but it depends on where your consciousness is aimed. If it's aimed to the outside, you can use it to navigate the outside. If it's aimed at the inside, you can use it to navigate the inside. The issue with using it to navigate the outside is that the outside is actually a projection of the inside. And so it's the cave allegory. So if you do it on the outside, you're just chasing the shadows. If you do it on the inside, right? Carl Jung, man, he who looks outside dreams. He who looks inside awakens. But part of consciousness is the outside can bring up or give us awarenesses about what's on the inside. It's like I could be really bitter on the inside, but I'm only surrounded by external situations that feel good to me. So that bitterness just keeps eating away. Something in the outside triggers me and the bitterness comes to the surface. It's not the outside thing that caused the bitterness. It just brought something, some internal experience up to my consciousness so that I could perceive it. We have a progression that triggers some kind of external event. Typically, the only reason it had enough power to attract an external event is because we suppressed and ignored it to allow it to build up that certain kind of power. You know, it's like you have that feeling, oh, I need to go to the dentist. Oh, I need to go to the dentist. And then you keep pushing it down. And then you get a cavity and you're like, fuck, I got to go to the dentist. Right? That sense, that little whisper, maybe I should go to the dentist, it was there the whole time, you know, but it had to reach a certain threshold before it could activate and turn into action, right? People who are paranoid about cavities, as soon as they hear the whisper, I should better go to the dentist, right? They're like, they booked an appointment for the next day. You know, the dentist is like, why are you here? Like you're fine, go. So if we can deal with it on the inner plane, it's the same. It's similar to dealing with discord in the children before they become adults. Children exist mainly in the inner plane. Right? They don't have enough information about what's going on outside to be oriented to external stuff. You know, they just don't know shit. You know, if you think about looking at the world from a kid's eyes, they appreciate and understand about 4% of what they actually see. You know, right? We look at something and we see all these beautiful things. A kid sees like 2 things. So they're definitely more in the internal, but the more we get external stuff, you know, we kind of forget about the internal world until we end up in rehab. So the question of where does it come from? I thought I answered this earlier when I said it's just it arises out of consciousness. Meaning, if we went back, right? So here's the thing that we have to think about, and this is related to astrology. Okay, the 3 main symbols in astrology are the circle, the crescent, and the cross. The circle, the crescent, and the cross. The circle, the crescent, and the cross. And if you look at all the glyphs of the signs, of the planets, they are all combinations of circle, cross, and a crescent. So the circle represents infinity, immortality. Okay? Cycles over and over again. Okay? So you can think of it like this. Like we're here and we could call quote unquote the modern age. Okay. Is you really think this is the first modern age? I'm not saying better or worse, but I'm saying if we think of a cycle, the nature of a cycle that keeps on going and going and going, okay? This is not the first time that people have gotten to an equivalent level of sophistication, right? And the nature of the cycle is we're not always going to be at this level of sophistication, right? If there's some kind of big world-changing event and we have to go. It's what they talk about with the flood and Noah in the Bible. Okay, right, and so we can imagine that there's a flood, right, and certain people know that there's going to be a flood, kind of like Noah, and they prepare themselves. They go to the higher ground. Okay, so we'll say a large part of the population is wiped out, but a lot of the people who weren't wiped out was because they had some level of knowledge, information that this was coming and they prepared for it. Okay. But besides them, everybody's starting over from the very beginning. And so in each new time, whether we say the people that survived had enough information that they gave people a head start, but in each round of civilization from beginning to where we are now, astrology will always arise because it's a natural part of our observation of nature. It's such a limited question because when you don't realize it arises from human consciousness. It's always existed. So we can say, when did we start recording history? And that'll always be the answer to the question of that. We can say for sure is we only know the beginning of something when we started recording history. And so if we go to record, right, how do we know what was going on before people could communicate what was going on and preserve it so it could be passed on? So the limitation we have is the first recorded history we have are tablets of astrological observations. So, and because the place that we happen to find those is a place called Mesopotamia, we could say it started in Mesopotamia, but that's not accurate. We're only saying the first evidence we have of anything started. When you say the collective unconscious, the way I understand it is as an evolving entity, okay, you started off in the mineral kingdom and you went through all of these different evolutions, right? And there's certain organs, right, certain structures in your physical body, right, that are using on a daily basis the information from the experiences that it gathered in the mineral and the plant kingdom. You know how mitochondria look just like organelles and plant cells, and they serve the same function. And mitochondria like ate a bacteria. So what we're made of is the collective unconscious. So I'm trying to get outside of the theory of it because it's not helpful to us, right? It's, to me, it's the same thing that I'm saying of anything that exists in us is by nature inherent in the seed of human consciousness. Otherwise, it couldn't be here. It couldn't show up. So we can paint it different colors and we can put different names on it, but all of it arises from human consciousness. And that human consciousness, what it has in common, what my human consciousness and your human consciousness have in common, is all of the cycles of evolution through all of the kingdoms that we had to go through to be able to produce a human body. To me, that's a more grounded way. That's a more grounded way to understand the collective unconscious. So this is deep. Like this, the more I do it, I realize this is so profound. It's like, you know, we can think of, we are made of the stars. We are made of the same things that stars are. Yeah, so just knowing so I think of information that will benefit us on wherever we go next. You know, how to get $2 off a Starbucks coffee. I'm not sure that information is going to benefit us wherever we go next, but I'm 100% confident that what we're all learning in this astrologic is going to be so useful to us on the next plane. I'm saying, what do you think about this idea of where we go next and how it relates to the choices that you're making in your life today? This is an 8th house Scorpio Pluto type of way of looking at things, right? How am I going to feel about what I'm doing right now at the very end of my life? When I'm on my deathbed and I reflect on this time of my life, what am I going to think about? On my experiences on this plane, you know, what do I imagine I'm going to think about how I'm responding in this moment? Okay, so let's imagine that after you leave this world, you realize that you way overestimated the negative effect of death. Way overestimated it. Okay, so that's easy to say now, but if you think of the choices you made in your life because of fear, unconscious fear of death or whatever blocked you and stopped you from going a certain direction, it seems a little pat to say, oh, I learned. It seems like it would burn just a little bit more. Right, this idea of burning just a little bit more, this is, I think, what the Christians meant when they talk about burning in hell. Right? You just think of like whether it's an argument or a relationship or a situation that you're out of and you look back and you realize, wow, I could have done so much better. I wasted so much time worrying. I suffered so much worrying about stupid things that didn't fucking matter. Oh, yes, 100%. We learn. We do learn. We do. But we don't have to go through those difficult experiences to learn. We don't have to go through those difficult experiences to learn those things. Right? That a practice or a forced difficult experience is to really sit with, right? What things in my life am I thinking are way more important than they actually are? What things in my life, when I'm past and looking back, am I going to look at and say, why the fuck did I waste my time doing that? Right? If we can tolerate the discomfort with asking ourselves those questions right now, oh, how much better prepared are we going to be for that moment when we do cross over? And how much better are we going to be prepared to hit the ground running for whatever comes next? When we say everything is as it should be, is as dumb as you are, the lessons are going to be that hard. As you become wiser, the lessons become easier. All of that is as it should be. That's how it works. You're coming to conclusion about as it should be means the way you think it should be. That's not what I'm saying. It's a kind of liberation. To me, it's similar to live and let live. It's similar. It's a little more intense. You know, is that everything we all are being fitted for a different type of work, and so we all need to attract different types of experiences. And the more we accept that, then the greater ease we can have with things moving. The more we resist it, it needs to be more intense to help us realize it so that we can get on with it. No, there's this deep wound, and I think we're doing a lot of work to heal it. But there's nothing wrong with any of us. We're all, I said this to Susan, we're all engaged in a beautiful process. And we have to keep reminding ourselves it's a beautiful process, right? Beautiful, right? Not always easy, doesn't always feel good. But when you keep perspective, it always is beautiful. And the more we can appreciate the beauty of the process, the more beautiful it becomes. And the more we focus on the difficult parts of the process, the more difficult it becomes. And something can be difficult and beautiful at the same time, right? This is the harmony, the harmonious discord. It was 2007, and I was like 2 weeks away from being reinstated to go back into the NFL after a year-long suspension. A year-long suspension, and it was almost up. 2 weeks before I was going to go back, and I failed a drug test. And I wasn't planning on failing the drug test. And there was like this fluke kind of thing where I failed it, like really fluky kind of thing. And it forced me to have an experience of there's something going on inside of me that I am not conscious of. And it has magical powers, and I don't get it. And I need to find some way to get in better touch with this thing. Yep. And so I ended up going to Boston for 6 months, and I had at least 2 groups, 5 days a week, and spent an hour talking to a psychiatrist, an hour a day, 5 days a week. Okay? And all of this so that I could try to get to at the core of there's something going on inside of me, right, that has different plans for me than my conscious mind has for myself. And after spending 6 months there, I got a sense of what direction I should be heading in my life. Right? So inside of us, the deepest part of us is an impulse towards life. And that core impulse is the power that attracts to us certain types of experiences. Okay? We can say that the specific colors and flavors of the experiences come from the chart, the orientation of the planets and signs and houses and all that stuff. But the core energy driving the whole thing, okay, that's the sun, spirit, monad, ego, whatever you want to call it, the divine spark, whatever you want to call it. And so it's the source of the light. So when they say the light is on inside, it's that light of consciousness that gives us the ability through experience to become aware of who we are and what the fuck we are doing here. Okay? And we're all in that process. All of us are in that process. So it's 2 parts. It's it's one, yes, becoming self-conscious, but the process of becoming self-conscious manifest is becoming more clear about who we are and what we're doing. It's like one way to think of it and where the chart can help is we're all built for something. And I'm not talking about just our conscious minds, I'm talking about our whole being based off of all of the past experiences we've had. It's all been a process of us being built for a specific purpose. So becoming self-conscious is becoming self-conscious of what that purpose is and doing it on purpose. So anytime we are, I don't like myself, this is bad, all of that is wrong. It's anti. It's a lack of appreciation of the value of all those experiences that we've needed because they're helping us become who we are meant to be. But still, I like personally, I have a problem with even the idea of saying that we fucked up or that we're fucking. I understand what you're saying, but for me, it still like brings up some. There's just something about that doesn't ring true. Right? Watching a child learning how to walk, right? When they fall down, they don't say "I fucked up." Like right? Even when they're old and they should know how to walk now, and somehow they are actually the reality is they're still because learning is like Linnea just said, learning doesn't ever end. We are infinitely going to be given opportunities to adapt and to expand our capabilities and our capacities. That is never going to stop, ever. So this idea of fucking up, I kind of understand where it's coming from, but I just don't think it's helpful. This is where I say we take too much credit but not enough responsibility. You're taking plenty of responsibility, but I feel like you're taking too much credit. All right, so and it's not that I'm blaming the planets, but it's a way to understand what is going on. Okay, someone, right? A kid is sitting there. You can see it with Soul. Okay, he's sitting there, and on the outside, there's this voice saying you're not supposed to do that, and he knows if he does it that he's going to get in trouble. But there's this much louder and more powerful voice on the inside telling him to do it. Right? And poor kid, he doesn't have a choice. He does not have a choice at this point in his life but to do it. You know? But as he matures, right, those other voices are going to get louder and it's going to be more of a conversation. Right? But that's a process. And if we say you fucked up because you kicked mom and hit mom and ran away, you fucked up and we punish him, oh, do you see how that's not quite right? You know, to appreciate his process, right? Because I don't know if it's my mood, but I get it. When he does something, I can't get mad at him because I get it, you know? But I can also appreciate how long it took me for those outer voices and the inner voices to start having a conversation. For most of us, it's the inner voice is telling us what to do, and every once in a while, the outer voice gets to punish the inner voice. But it's not a conversation. It's not ever a conversation. And so this is why I think the chart allows us to have enough space to be able to have a conversation, and even the language of recognizing the manifestation of discord. Okay, right? Even you can use your own words, but that's a more elegant and useful way of understanding fucking up. Is really understanding the beautiful process. You know? Because what even we call fucking up, most of the time it's us adapting the best we can. And all of the time, all we know how to do is adapt the best we know how based on our past experiences. That's all any of us are ever. And when we honor that and our love ourselves through it, it becomes a smoother process. You know, Stephen, my astrology teacher, he tells us when we're doing the work, he tells us to trust the symbols. Trust the symbols. You know, what that looks like is I might be talking to someone and they're saying one thing, but I'm looking at the symbols and the symbols are saying something else, and I'm confused and I'm not sure what to do. He says, trust the symbols. And every time I do, you know, it creates this amazing breakthrough. But there's another way to think of trusting the symbols that we're talking about right now. and it's trusting the symbols enough to experiment. You know, I'm learning this and it seems like this, so let me do this. Let me when I say experiment, I mean go all in. Go all in, right? Don't half step. I had a coach who would always talk about back doors, you know. I had a mentor also talk about back doors, you know, and recognizing that we all have back doors, you know. If this doesn't work out, I'll have this, you know. If this doesn't go well, I'll always have this. You know? But if we have back doors, the energy that we're using to create the back door and keep that back door open is the energy we need to make the front door open. So if we are keeping our back doors, we're really limiting what we're capable of. And the chart can help support you in getting clarity about which direction to move to go all in. And if you trust the symbols, it brings that trust that allows you to go all in. So yeah, I have a strong Pluto, and I think, you know, me finding astrology was a necessity because I can't help but go all in. And I kept going all into things that weren't really part of my path. And so the going all into those things led me to the right thing to go all in. But if I hadn't been going all into those other things, I probably wouldn't have gotten to find the thing that I was ready to go all in. And so even something as bloody and deadly as Pluto Mars in my chart, it still works, you know? For some reason, I'm still alive. Lene and I had this really cool conversation today about Discord, you know? And so even if we think of the positive side of Discord, right? So I'll use the example of someone who's won a Super Bowl. Okay? Again, because you can't win a Super Bowl unless you've been able to have a positive experience related to Discord. Okay? But the nature of the positive experience related to Discord is, we'll say in this example, through the season, okay? I would say this person, you know, had bad injuries through the season, but they pushed through the injuries to make it to the end. Okay. So they have the experience that when things hurt and I push through, things go well. Okay. Positive experience at Discord. Okay. And now you're hanging around the person. Okay. You're hanging around the winner of the Super Bowl. Right. And it's wonderful. Oh, wow. This guy won a Super Bowl. It's so great. It's going to be so much fun to hang around. Okay. And you hang around and it's amazing. And then you decide, oh, I can see amazing things happening. Let's get into business together. Okay. So you get into business together and things get hard and you start complaining to them and they go to complain, hoping they'll listen to you. And they tell you to shut the fuck up and do your job. Okay. And it's like, damn, that sucked. Right. But that, where is it coming from? Not because he's mad or he's angry or you're doing something wrong, but from his experiences of how to get to the positive side of the Discord. You have to stop making excuses and do your job. So is that's the harmony or the positive side of Discord. I don't know. That was a cool way to think about it. There's many stories similar to that people will tell about going into business with retired football players. Plenty of stories. From a Saturn earthly perspective, right? If you have bills to pay and you don't pay the bills and you're on the street, you fucked up, right? Then when there's a physical thing that has to be done and it's not done, right? If I'm hungry and I need to find food for my belly and I don't, and I'm starving and it's not comfortable, I could make the definition of, from an earthly perspective, I didn't accomplish the goal and I fucked up. Okay. But so there's that. But when I'm talking about fucking up, I'm not on the earthly plane anymore because the quote unquote fucking up on the earthly plane is serving some kind of higher purpose. Right. And that's why I don't like the term fucking up, because the nature of gaining consciousness comes from experience. And experience is the experience of contrast. So the nature of the contrast and learning to calibrate and adapt to it requires quote unquote fucking up. And then when you add the moral part of it, then the big question to me is fucking up based on whose rules? Whose rules? That's what got me. One day I was like, I was doing like working on my judgment stuff, you know, and I got to the point of, okay, right or wrong, but whose rules are like whose rules are we following? Who's determining what is right and determining what is wrong? And that's when it kind of all like disappeared for me. I was like, it's a farce. It's a farce. So yes, we can have a philosophical conversation about what you said and it's valid, but we can also destroy the whole conversation just going to another dimension. For instance, someone in a relationship can say, you know, the most important thing in a relationship is to be honest, so I'm going to put it all on the table, right? But so you meet someone and you're going to put all on the table, but you don't realize the person that you're meeting is so wounded, okay, that they don't have the ability to tolerate your stuff on the table yet, right? And matter of fact, there's not anyone in the planet that's worth spending time with whose stuff they can tolerate on the first date. Not one person. So until they meet someone who's willing to not follow the rule, if I'm going to put it all on the table on the first date, that person is fucked. Okay, but again, someone will die right on that on that hill. I'm going to put it all on the table on the first time I see someone. So the beauty of adaptation, you know, I think that theoretically you can think that we have in us the capacity to meet every situation gracefully, right? In us the capacity, but that capacity is constantly being nurtured, constantly being refined.